I just realized that I was doing things wrong here. Oh my God. Hi everyone. I need to get a new version of that ad. And people saying, you play that same ad. Like, well, you watch Hulu? Same deal. Not really though. What's going on, everybody? It is Tuesday, October 15th here in the Pacific Northwest. It is starting to rain, which means come visit. Do mean it, actually. You can see in the background here. Portland, Oregon, that's where I am based. And one of our guests here is based in Tacoma. And super stoked that she is a member. But also, we met at a golf tournament. One of the other hats I wear here. But I want to thank everybody for your support, especially our members. Our brief is very simple. It is to build the global home for independent agencies. Our mission, serve independent agencies and the brilliant people behind them. The goal is more visibility for indies, more choice for marketers. This time last year, we had 5 members. Now we're up to 150. So thank you so much. Learn more about membership at indieagency.news. You'll see the little red thing, little red button to push, and you can see the membership benefits. And we're adding more to it. So this past year, we've been learning a ton what our members need, and we are a member-based concern. The other thing that we have going on this week, we have an awards program, and this is the first that we've done of this. It's called Top 40. And later today at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, 8 GMT, we're going to be revealing places 30 through 21 in our top 40. And we did our first one yesterday, and this has been a lot of fun. And I appreciate everybody popping in on that. But it was great. So today you can actually just go to the homepage. You can check it out on LinkedIn as well. The top 40. And then in New York next week, next Monday, we're scrolling down. We're honoring the top 3. We are surprising the top 3 winners live in New York. Monday, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Delancey. It's Lower East Side. And thank you to Avid Exchange for supporting the top 40. The way that we do partnerships here on Indie Agency News is we vet our partners. We ask for 3 references, and then we vet our partners, and then they become preferred partners because we want to make sure that the partnerships that we have are of great benefit to our members and to indie agencies to help them grow their business. So thank you to Avid Exchange. Super stoked to have them on board as well. Today, now, Christine, I'm going to bring you on first because we got to tee this up. You're my buddy from Tacoma.
That's true. It's true. PNW people.
Yeah, PNW, here we are. So, first of all, you're a member. Thank you so much for your support. But when you and I talk, when we first talked, it was, where do you feel you fit in? And I think one of the most important things about Indie Agency News in this community is that we're all bringing something unique that we firmly believe will benefit other indies, and by extension, the indie community, and by extension, the marketing community. And you have a very specific approach in what you do. So give us a little bit of a background on the work that you're doing and why it matters to you so much.
Sure. Yeah. So we like to say we are the only agency that exclusively serves agencies. So we very much operate like an agency in terms of how we staff, which I know we'll talk about a little bit more today, how we resource, even how we kind of price and scope and do our SOWs. But we only service agencies. So we don't work directly with end brands at all. We work with agencies by giving them small, curated strategy and account teams to help with pitches, all the way up to, let's say, serve as their acting strategy team if they don't have one. And I started this, so I was a solo freelancer for 5 years before having this idea in 2020. And I was really sick of coming in kind of as a solo freelancer and then being expected to do everything. So like as a strategist, do stakeholder interviews, but also present to the CMO and pretend, white label as the agency. And I really thought, okay, well, creatives get the opportunity to work in teams. Why can't account and strategy people do the same?
Yeah, true.
So here we are. And we've now worked with 50 agencies within North America, including some indie shops that are part of Indie Agency News. And so pretty strong POVs on kind of how to build a mix. And we love other agencies who are open to new ways of doing things, because I think there are some agencies that are still sort of stuck in this idea that everybody must be full-time or somehow
Right. Well, so that's what we call a professional broadcast segue into the topic at hand. Let's bring in our friends. Everybody wave. I'm not gonna. And Suzanne, thank you for being a member. I love having you on board. Hopefully, we'll see you in New York. We did get a comment. So Top 40 in the Lower East Side. It's going to be a good show. It's going to be a party. And it's going to be like an official show. So, but we're excited. And I like being in the Lower East Side. But let's start here. The state of talent has been in flux. Now, obviously, look at the color of my hair. I've been around a while. And talent, there are some constants, right? Where it's this idea and that thing of there's so much talent everywhere, but now it is felt as though that there's so much, it's more on steroids because of technology, because of client and brand need, because back in the day, you'd start as a copywriter and you would do one thing. Now, as a copywriter, you're expected to do 20 things. I'm curious about the current state of talent, and that's a jump ball. So whoever wants to raise their hand first, please go ahead and we'll go around. Lyndsey, I'm going to make you go.
Okay. Well, I unmuted. A really, really interesting time in our industry. And as you mentioned, it was thrown up by the pandemic. But what I'm seeing is an urgent need, seeing and hearing an urgent need to do things differently. I think that's why you're seeing this explosion of small indie shops that are being led by ex-Holdco executives. Right. It felt like at the beginning of this year, there was a new indie shop at least once, twice a month. Right. But then I also think the big shops are rethinking how they need to operate and how they need to staff in order to compete and in order to service clients. So we're seeing clients responding to this changing dynamic.
Right.
And I think that they're leaning more towards the indies because they get that relationship with the leaders and the partners.
Yeah. And I think one thing, sorry to interrupt, but one thing that you mentioned was more senior leadership, because if we go back to the cycle of like golden eras of indies, you look at 2004, 2005, that was your 72 and Sunny, your Anomalies. They were acquired by MDC, and then Stagwell came in. Then you had 2008, 2009, and that was mainly out of circumstance because of the economy. But the difference was in 2008 and 2009, you were seeing more lower and mid-level people being laid off, as opposed to now, which you had mentioned, Lyndsey, is more senior level people. And so my contention is that, there'll be some M&A. As long as Martin Sorrell's around, there's going to be M&A. But I will say that I think there's more durability and there will be more longevity in this phase and in this era of independent agencies. And part of this too is thinking about staffing, is thinking about talent and how to make it work. And I do believe that junior and mid-level talent from 08, 09, they were figuring it out and feeling it out. The great news for them was technology was still in the ascendancy. Now it's much more mature. And a lot of these senior people have much more of a very specific view, not necessarily simply of the technology, but what a brand demands and what a brand needs. So with that in mind, Suzanne, talk a little bit about your view on the state of talent.
Yeah, talent is out there. I think I've seen, to that point, just a lot of, diversity of talent. I think just as much of, people kind of moving more towards this either freelance or perma-freelance approach. I think everyone has really opened arms to that, which has given more opportunities to talent that maybe wasn't necessarily there. I think in terms of, what we're seeing at Atlantic, we just have a vast pool of really incredible people who are really not just talented, but are just lovely human beings that we get to work with. And it just makes the work more expansive. So I think we see it as such a benefit and a value for us in the way that we work creatively by having so many opportunities to bring in talent that's almost curating smaller teams based on the work we do with brands. And so I think the talent out there is getting access to great briefs. I think they're more choiceful about what they want to work on these days, which I love. And I think that there's a lot of just more opportunities, I think, from just a talent viewpoint of where they want to work. Just beyond the agency side, I'm seeing more and more people being kind of excited by different agencies and different briefs and going after different opportunities, which I love to see. I think CVs are now getting much more dynamic. They're not, I think, as like, straight and the same kind of thing. I'm like, don't be fooled by the CV. That's like kind of one of the things we're looking at is
interesting.
I think for so long there was like a criteria, and I'm very grateful for my background with a lot of that kind of institutional knowledge and learning kind of the holding company way. But I think what's becoming more at the forefront is this more like maker mindset, and I think creatives are getting more involved with the work in a lot of different ways. So yeah, I think I love looking at CVs that are kind of have different things going on. I'm now looking more at the person rather than just the experience. So I'm excited by that. I think people are having more opportunities.
All right, and let's go down to Florida. So I think we're the only ones with German last names. Dockendorf and Zanger. You know what? That sounds, oh my God, we could start a company. Dockendorf.
We could be a law firm.
Oh my God, I think it does, but doesn't it sound like that we make like really high-end furniture?
Or a sound studio, one or the other.
Right. That's exactly right. I would love to get your take on the current state, but also let's move into let's move into some of the successful staffing models that we're seeing as well. And there is clearly no one size fits all, but it's good to have a view as to what works best. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Oh, that's all right. So everything we talked about.
Lots to unpack. Here we go.
We have a lot to unpack. Everything we talked about, from pandemic changing the way that we think in business and how we staff, and then we go into 23 and 24, and we're seeing these big agencies downsize so that they can be more nimble, and then we're seeing these great executives start their own companies. It all really comes down to culture. Ultimately, when you start looking at the right employees, and as you start having a smaller team, and that's something that happened to us as well. We were much larger, and I don't say we didn't become smaller, we streamlined. We are so much more impactful now.
Oh, interesting.
Because we have the right people in the right seats. So it allows us to bring in secondary freelance talent to bolster our team. But the biggest thing I'm always watching for is you don't want to burn out your existing team by giving all the fun work to freelancers or other people who are jumping in and out. So this is where, when it comes to staffing and thinking about the future of the company and the health of your employees, culture is so important, to be thinking about their emotional creativity as well, so that they don't feel there are people popping in and out of projects just to do the fun stuff and they're left, picking up the pieces to get the project across the line.
Right.
So there's a lot of psychology as well that kind of gets woven into when we think about staffing and team and how big we want to be versus how small, that I've really embraced in the last year and have enjoyed, kind of wading through those waters and figuring out how it all works.
Yeah. And I think that, what you're saying, Taja, is that one thing that was really interesting that you said, that really, because again, this one size doesn't fit. You mentioned the psychology. I want you to go a little bit deeper into that, because you think about the psychology on both sides, right? So you have the talent that's out there, and trust me, I hear this a lot, is, I want a gig, I want a gig, I want a gig. Of course you do. And we all want to work and we all want to contribute. And so the best talent that I know are those who say, yeah, I want a job, but I also want to contribute to something that has some meaning. So there's a psychology of that, a psychology of desire. Whereas on your side, on the agency side, a psychology of need. So how do you bridge those?
Well, I think the biggest thing is when you start bringing in freelancers and you think about that psychology, you don't want to overstep your team at the same time. So there's that big piece. You want them to work in collaboration with each other, not feel like someone's being brought in just to do the fun work and they're left, to my point before, picking up the pieces. So it comes down to culture, and it comes down to how do you work with freelancers? How do you work with talent that you're bringing in so that they feel embraced by the long-term team that you have in place, and that the freelancers don't feel like they're being hung out to dry. It all comes down to communication. At the end of the day, it is that everything has a solution, and communication is key. And if you can keep those two pieces going, you're going.
Right. And we'll go into more depth on that. Christine, your thoughts on psychology, but also some of the more successful staffing models.
Yeah. So I was going to say, I think, so having done this in some way, shape, or form for 8 or 9 years, one of the things I think that has made me so successful and allowed me to turn this into, a much larger thing than myself, is that I always like to say I'm in it for the work and not the glory. And I'm not a creative, so I don't necessarily have that bone in my body, but I do think a lot of freelancers really want to, to Taja's point, to sort of stand out, to be in these award-winning moments. And if you reframe freelancing, at least for me and for us, what's been really successful is to reframe it as being support for the agency team. We're there because they're overstaffed. We're there because they haven't had the mental and emotional space to sort of take a beat, and be creative and be innovative. And I think that's why agencies feel comfortable with us, because we're not there to jostle anyone out of a job or to take the cheesiest briefs. We're there to help. And that's been working really well for us. And then as far as the model, I would say it should be somewhat invisible. And I mean that less in terms of white labeling, because I have strong opinions on that, but more in terms of if you're coming in to be helpful and you're coming in to be empowering, you shouldn't be the most visible thing. You're not there to jockey someone out of a job. So mid-level talent, I think for us, has actually been some of our biggest advocates, because we free up the space and the time for them to rise up, to take on new challenges, things like that. So we've never come in at the upper level. So to Lyndsey's point earlier, I think the senior and executive talent is something I don't necessarily think should shift for a lot of our agency partners, but the junior mid-level space is where we can really help people be more successful day to day, I think.
Lyndsey, Slapglobal, first of all, congratulations on a hell of a can. Lions, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, slightly delayed, but I saw the work. We covered it. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. It's fun work.
Well, and you're all doing, really, really good work. So I want to talk about when you go into a place like Slapglobal, all three agencies here are doing really exceptional work. You've got your Mistress of the World. You have these high profile agencies doing high profile work. I'm curious about how you take a look at that and how you are looking at how you're looking at talent, because you do want, again, need and fit, but also there could be some potential opportunity. So I'm curious about the conversations that you have, understanding that you're working at, that all of your agencies are working at, and all agencies work at very high levels. It's a profile, right? So your profile is slightly higher. So I'm curious what that sounds like.
Yeah, I think Slap started coming out of the pandemic in early 2021, and started specifically to blow up the model, to bring together the world's greatest talent, specifically creative talent, into one agency, no matter where they sat. So we like to refer to ourselves as one team, just sat across 3 different continents. We, in terms of structure, we favor a flat structure. We intentionally hire extremely senior, talented, accomplished people. And then as needed, we fill out some support system underneath when we have a trigger moment of realizing that we can't do all of it. But I think a lot like what Susie was saying earlier, everybody does everything. And because we average 15 to 20 years of experience, there isn't really anyone underneath that. So it allows us to move extremely quickly and stretch and flex across different challenges, because most of us have seen it. And if I haven't seen it, someone else on the team has seen it. So we try and make sure we've got senior people with varying and diverse experience across the board so that we can fill each other's gaps.
Right. And that's such a balance, because the model, when you look at a staffing model, it's so dynamic and it can change weekly. Suzanne, I'm curious, because again, you're a newer agency as well. From when you launched Atlantic New York to now, what have you seen in terms of changes of your staffing? How have you tried to stay ahead of that? Because like I said, next week you could say, oh my God, we got to do this.
Yeah, don't quote me on this. Maybe ask me again next week and I might have a different answer.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, disclaimer, there you go.
No, it's, I think what we have found a lot of success doing, which I think is probably fair for the group, is we have our core team, which is our like core agency team. And then we almost have like our next level or like kind of ring around us, which is either like freelance, kind of perma freelance people we know really well that we kind of pull into projects a little bit more seamlessly. And then the ring around that is really, kind of our extended team that come in on specific projects. So, I think we found a lot of success almost curating teams based on the creative need. I think what Lyndsey was saying, like we have a very clear creative vision for the agency.
Right.
And I think we want that to be complementary of whoever joins our team. And I think, as we were saying earlier, chemistry, of course, we want to make sure it's the right fit, both in terms for them and for us. And they really come in feeling a part of Atlantic. I mean, I get that feedback all the time. They don't feel like they're just dropped on a piece of ice and they like sink away. I think for them, they really come in and they feel, we onboard them to the agency, not just the work. And I think that is really important. So I think we found a lot of success in almost when projects come in, we're mirroring that back in the talent we bring to the table. I think the work is stronger and better for it. We actually put a lot of people in front of clients. I think that's really important, like just in terms of voices in the room. And we don't shy away from that. I think it is an important part of our makeup, but the work is ultimately the beneficiary of that, as well as the relationship in terms of both with the freelancers we bring in, but also clients. But some of them have been freelance and then they've come full time. So I always think that's a very nice, even just a reflection of that, it
Right.
is a little bit about that mindset. But we have to do our part to make sure that that is sustainable.
Right. And Taja, I want to talk about, in how long have you been at the agency?
I've owned it for 20 years.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Let's say that I knew it was longer than a year.
It's just a little time.
That part I did know. How would an agency even start? And I think that where I'm going with this is, how can an agency audit their approach to talent? We've talked about need, et cetera, et cetera. Let's say it doesn't matter if you're a new agency or if you've been around for a while, but especially agencies that have been around for a while. How would you audit your processes and the way you consider navigating talent? How do you even start?
Oh, well, I mean, it's been 20 years of navigating talent, and I started off as a designer. So initially, I'm a designer by trade. So my agency was really started with creative at the core. And then as we grew, it was really looking for other creatives that shared that same solution-oriented approach that I had, and creating teams of high functioning creatives who could present, who could be strategists, who could build beautiful creative and take it all the way to the end. So when I start thinking about those that I brought on the agency, I really looked for people who had similar mindsets as mine from a culture standpoint, but could bring things to the table that maybe I wasn't as strong in. in. And throughout my process, last 20 years, it's always been assessing that. Who do we need? Where are the holes? And it's never about filling a role. It's about looking at kind of unpacking the agency and everyone who's there, moving people around into roles that they might be better suited at, and then looking at it very holistically and thinking, all right, what do we really need? We don't just need to hire for this X, title. We really need someone who can do X, Y, and Z, because that's going to strengthen us in the end. And I'm one for change. So I audit things constantly. It's like, how can we improve? How can we be better? I think it's a gift that I didn't get an MBA, that I really kind of approach everything from a creative solution-oriented mindset, because I've learned so much. And I mean, again, I started as a freelancer, and then I started my company, and then I got clients. So when I have employees who tell me I want to go off on my own, I support them. And this is one thing that I think it has really been important to me, is that when an employee leaves, it's not personal. I just hope that I've been able to give them the tools to be super successful in their next role. And for me, that's a win.
Right. Bonus question for you. What for Taja? The agency is based in Portland, Maine, right? Technically.
Yes, my office is in Portland, Maine. I'm presently in Florida, and I've got team members. Before, we used to all be in person, all in one office, doing everything together. And now I've New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, we've got it covered.
Yes, I get it. And every agency is like this. The most important question, and this is more for me and Christine, what do Portland, Maine people really think about Portland, Oregon people?
I mean, we're the original, just to put that out there.
Are you native Portland?
Yeah.
Oh, you hate us then.
Oh no.
We share weather patterns that are similar, but
okay, you're gonna be all diplomatic. Oh, here we go.
It was 35 degrees in Maine this morning. I don't know what it was for you, but maybe we
like 40 something.
Commiserate.
Yeah. You talk too fast for a Mainer.
I'll take that as a compliment.
That is a compliment. I love Maine because it gets down into second gear. So
what makes us successful in Maine. We move like New Yorkers, but we enjoy the climate of Maine and the water.
Well, when you get outside of Portland, you're from the city.
That's true. Yeah, we're in Portland.
Good luck with that. No, what I've noticed though is, so here's a fun little fact. The other thing I do, Think Northwest, we were the jury for your Broderson Awards in Portland last year. So that's the Portland, Maine Creative Awards.
So now I know who gave out the awards. Excellent.
It wasn't me. I just got people.
That's awesome.
No, but here's what I love. Obviously we love Portland, Oregon, but love Portland, Maine. We were almost called New Boston, by the way. It was based on a coin flip. And so what's interesting is that community is really, really interesting. And so where I want to go with this is a little bit, and Christine, we'll start with you and just what you've observed within communities, because obviously, everyone's dispersed. I get it, but still you have like the Portland, Maine community, Suzanne in New York, Lyndsey, you're in New York. But even when you look at it, it gets broken down into these little, these little groups and these crews. And Christine, what have you noticed about any regional or, because obviously you and I are in the Northwest, the challenges are they're similar, but also a little bit different. But what have you noticed about the importance of these communities, especially in markets, coming together to discuss a lot of these issues?
Yeah, for sure. I think, I'm definitely a big city person. I think as a lot of people know, I was in New York for a while. I worked with two of the folks on this call. So, I had my New York days and I had Philly. I was in Miami. I started my ad career in Phoenix. I've lived in really big cities. So this is kind of a change for me. So I've really had to work hard to find common people. So I literally went on LinkedIn and searched for someone in Tacoma in the industry and found someone, ended up having coffee. I drove to Portland, obviously, for the golf event that you hosted. And I think you have to work a little harder. The big city, that New York in particular, you literally run into people. I was at an event that Suzanne was hosting a few weeks ago and ran into 3 people. You don't get that kind of outside of that environment. So you have to work a little bit harder to sort of find those moments of connection and moments of sort of networking. You might have to build it yourself. But I think that's been good. I think it's good for everyone to have a little bit of both of those experiences. Sometimes someone hands it to you on a silver platter, and here I think you have to work a little bit harder to find those folks. But now that I've connected with you, I'm sure it'll be easier, hopefully.
That'd help you.
Yeah. Prayers.
I'm gonna do a quick little one answer thing. Let's give me one do and one don't around talent. And then the third thing I ask is, what's the best way to communicate to freelancers? So a do, a don't, the best way to communicate. Suzanne, you're laughing, so I'm going to make you go first.
Oh man. Okay. I love this. Yeah. I would say just be open. So just be open in terms of different types of talent. I would say don't be fooled by the CV. I kind of already led with that a little bit, but I just think there's more. I've been so not even surprised. I've just found a lot of joy in finding where people have strengths and where they can go and being part of that with them. And then I think communicating with freelancers, I mean, I always get to know them first, even though it's a process. Like, I don't leave it to email. It's not, here's the need, here's the seat, here's what I need. We have a conversation about it. And I think that's really important, is to just be human, you know, in kind of the hiring process, and make sure, that you show up in those conversations. I think it's really important.
Yeah, no, I agree. Lyndsey, let's go over to you.
Okay.
You're gonna stall some. Let me see your watch. That's a solid watch.
My watch. Oh,
that's nice. That's a solid timepiece there. Please continue.
This is one I've carried with me my whole career. Hire for character first. Always hire for character first. Do not, as a very small agency, I would say do not hire people that have been part of big teams at big agencies and were just kind of a cog in the larger wheel. We've is a live and learn for us. But you want someone that's going to be entrepreneurial and resourceful and able to flex in all kinds of different places, not someone that's been used to doing one thing on one team and doing a little part. It just doesn't work. And then freelance. We treat freelancers like they're a part of the Slap team. So kind of always just kick off, establish a personal relationship with them first. Yep. Talk them through kind of what they can expect from working on our teams, with our teams, and kind of just do everything I can to set them up for success.
Yes, I've been in both sides of that, set up for success and set up to flop spectacularly. And I think everybody has. Taja, your do, don't, and communication to freelancers.
Yeah, my do is ask questions and do your homework. I think we've all kind of touched on that. You know, I've been fooled once, and now I know what questions to ask. And the CV does not matter. It's to your point. I think it was Lyndsey. It's personality based. Don't hold on to people that aren't the right fit. Mm-hmm. I've tried to cram a square peg into a round hole. It does not work, and the team ends up suffering. So being able to call a spade is incredibly important. And honestly, I think we've all said this: bring freelancers into your culture. You're not trying to keep them on the outside. You want them to be part of the team, part of the family, and that's how you're going to do your best work. That's where communication is going to come from: is having your teams not feel despondent to each other, having them feel like they're one.
Right. All right, Christine, you brought this whole family together here, so you get the final word on this one. Do's, don'ts, and communicating to freelancers.
Sure. Yeah. So do consider teams beyond creative. I will die saying I will say this on my deathbed, but creatives aren't the only ones that have a right and benefit and do greater work by working in teams. Strategists and account people do as well. And I think that's true of freelancers as well. Don't worry so much about what the end client will think. I think all the folks on this call are a little bit more evolved in this, but a lot of agencies panic about the optics. Like, what if they know it's outside talent? I don't know.
Oh, right.
don't know if they care, if it's seamless and the work is really, really good. Obviously, at the most senior levels, that's different, but don't worry so much about the end clients, the optics. Just do great work and have great people, and I think the rest will fall into place. And then please, for communicating to freelancers, since I'm on this side, agencies talk a lot about not getting news or being ghosted by their end clients. So don't do the same to your freelancers. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. No, true.
Pass the goodwill along, because we also wait to hear back. So we are on the other end of that.
Exactly. All right. I'm going to put all of you back. This isn't a Zoom call, so don't hang up. I want to talk to you backstage. Everyone's like, bye, and then they hang up. Lyndsey, Christine, Taja, Suzanne, thank you so much for joining us. And this is likely chapter 1 of more conversations. I think we can dig in a little bit deeper on these things. As we tell our members, you are welcome to share your opinion. So if you have an op-ed, we're happy to take a look at it as well. And also, if you're a member and you have an op-ed and you want to pitch it to a big publication like an Adweek and Ad Age, we'll help you look at it. That's part of the membership as well. Go to indieagency.news and you'll learn more about that. All right, I'm going to put you 4 backstage as I once again shill for Indie Agency News Top 40. We are honoring 30 through 21 today at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, 8 GMT. And then tomorrow the same for 20 to 11. And then on Thursday, 10 to 4 in New York City on the Lower East Side. Monday, the 21st from 6 to 8. If you are a member, you get a member rate. If you're not a member, you got a rate for that. If you work for a holding company, it's $1,299. You get plenty of opportunities. You get plenty of opportunities to go. You can spend a little bit more. And then Sir Martin Sorrell, if you're listening, we put together a special rate for you, $35,000. I'm dead serious. You can go and look. Go to indieagency.news. Look at it. If Sir Martin spends 35 grand, more than welcome to join us. And you are welcome to join us as well. On behalf of everybody at Indie Agency News, I'm Doug Zanger. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.